Good afternoon, Ruby Lane. I am Rachel, and I am here with Eron Johnson at Eron Johnson Antiques in Denver, Colorado. So we've been on our Ruby road trip, and we caught up with Eron this past weekend at the Denver Modernism Show, and now we are here in his amazing, amazing warehouse antique store in Denver, Colorado. We're standing in front of a couple doors that you just recently sold on your Ruby Lane account, Eron.
Yes, they're going to Texas.
That's very exciting.
And so many things that we sell these days get shipped all over the country and in fact all over the world via platform like Ruby Lane.
So we are here to bring you live into the shop owner's store. So you get to see all of Eron's wonderful things on his Ruby Lane shop. He is also on Ruby Lux, but you get to also now come on in and get really behind the scenes on who you're dealing with and see some of the ways that Eron uses these things and displays them, and so you can see how you would like to display them yourself. So Eron, would you give us a little tour?
Certainly, yeah. And the first thing I have to say is that I like anything interesting. And I also like things that show the hand of man, something that was actually made by somebody, and you can tell that it's not like a factory product. So what you're going to see is a mixture, entirely mixed together by whatever reason that it seemed good to me. And I encourage everybody to do the same thing in your house or studio or whatever, is just mix things that have the same qualities together. And it can be color, texture, whatever. But you'll see as we go through, this is kind of how I see the world.
And speaking of you, Eron, you have been doing this since you were 15 years old.
Yes.
And you opened your first shop in Lodo?
I opened my first shop in Wheat Ridge, Colorado in a little house. And I have not done anything else since, just kept buying and selling. And now we have 30,000 square foot warehouse.
This is your life's passion. What
Yep.
a treat.
So this area is kind of a more formal kind of looking area. It has a lot of things from Italy in it, and the Italian things have a certain look. But I mix everything together, just whatever talks to me. In this area, you're looking at beautiful wood, and you're looking at gold, which I think gold belongs in every house somewhere, even if it's just a little tiny patch of it. The same with red and the same with black. I read many years ago a design book, and it said every room should have a touch of black, a touch of red, and a touch of gold.
This chair has it all.
And that chair has it all.
That's a wonderful chair. Is that painted leather?
Yes, it's painted leather, and it's from the early 17s, late 1600s, out of Sweden.
Fantastic.
So I mix, and again, I mix everything, which is what's beautiful to me about antiques, is that they can all mix together and be just happy. You don't have to have a room that's just French or just American or whatever. And like this is a modern table designed by an architect or an artist named Edgar Britton in the 1950s. And it's very heavy, which is why another reason I like it. As you'll see, I like heavy things. Solid marble, but very 50s. But I like mixing French Empire, big stone crystal, a big 1950s marble table, because to me it all speaks the same language. It has color and it has texture. So since we're here and we're looking at kind of monochromatic vision, I guess you'd say, you can take a look in here, and this is a whitewashed, although actually a gray washed French cabinet, loaded with pewter. And we have it against a gray wall, which is kind of the mod color, I guess, the modern color palette tends a lot towards grays and creams and white, which I also really like. But I mix it in, and I think the pewter is kind of a forgotten accessory, as is silver, when you're dealing with a lot of these modern color palettes. It's historically, it was called the poor man's silver. If you polish the heck out of it, it looks like silver. but I actually like it much better with all the shades of gray.
And a matte finish.
A lot of the very early pewter I know can be quite expensive, but are pieces like this attainable?
Oh yes, today you can find it for literally a few dollars and at estate sales and things, because it's not popular right now. So it's actually the best thing to be buying are the things that are sort of not trendy. It's historic, all handmade, and the metal is glorious.
And when you look at it, it's so trendy.
Oh, it's wonderful. Yeah, I like the gray and silver and all those tones. So, but I don't ever like something that doesn't have, again, a touch of color. So we have a whitewashed Danish table or Swedish table with Japanese imari on it, contemporary pottery, and French chairs with just a hint of kind of a pale gold color.
And who made this pottery right here?
Oh, I did.
And that one?
Yes. Yes, you can tell.
Those are originals?
Yes, yep.
It's a lot of fun.
So we can head down this direction. So we have a sample of a Venetian plaster wall that a friend did, and on it are Afghani totems, kind of, they were on each side of a doorway. You have a Burmese altar in the center.
Now, where would somebody put a Burmese altar?
Well, you have to have a pretty big space. We have 10-foot walls in here, and you can see it's probably 9 feet tall.
This serves as your art, and is it functional? You can actually store things inside. And
Definitely put things inside, but something like this really is just a giant piece of sculpture in the big scheme of things. It is interesting that it is stackable, and you could actually take it into like 3 sections. We've had people look at it to turn it into 3 separate parts for a room.
It looks
What
like
about
a wedding
jewelry
cake.
box?
Yes. Oh, you could be a
That would be a great jewelry box. Is all of this detailing original?
Yes, it's
Wow.
all original.
Fantastic.
19th century, probably middle 19th century.
Incredible.
These are from Afghanistan, usually what's called the Swat Valley, which is a particular area that was famous for its carving. And carvings like this could be hundreds and hundreds of years old. So also in the same area, you can see how I mix Italian. So Italian painted furniture and raw pine, which I also like. That's where you take, this probably at one point had gold leaf on it, this mirror, and it's been carefully stripped back to the wood, which is really a lot of work. It's not hard to do, it's just really time consuming.
If you are tuning in live right now, we are at the shop of Eron Johnson Antiques. This is, how old is your warehouse?
The building was built about 1920.
And it is full. It feels like we just found the buried treasure right now. So we are in here live talking with Eron Johnson, the owner of Eron Johnson Antiques on Ruby Lane and on Ruby Lux. If you would like to ask a question or see anything up close, tune in, talk live in the comment feed right now, and we will, Bianca is here, and we will get a close-up for you. So
Great.
we can tell that Eron really likes glass as we head into this room, well, this room and then this room over here. This piece of stained glass is out of this world. This one right here.
Oh, yes, and the time of day that we're here, we're not getting the light through it. It was made by a company called Duffner and Kimberly, and they were a competitor to Tiffany Studios, but used many of the same techniques and much of the same type of glass. It's put together in different layers. You can see the layers showing through, and you can see some of the layers on the surface here. It actually came out of a high school in New York. We found through a little bit of research where it came from. It was donated in 1907 by the class of 1907 to the high school. So it's pretty exciting.
Where could somebody display something like that?
Well, to me, I would probably put it in a dining room or something, or a big loft kind of space. But I'd love to see something like this be the only color in a very contemporary setting, and just have this, you know, positioned as art. So you can see through here, speaking of that, there's about every country under the planet in this particular area. French fireplace, French mirror, Danish paintings, an American liberty. The statue's carved from one piece of marble, very heavy again. And then off of a theater, probably in Chicago or somewhere in the Midwest, these are giant pottery, glazed pottery faces off the cornice of some big building.
Wow. It's amazing.
This area over here, you can see the color in the Indian columns, and you have a wonderful old Irish cabinet back there with old red paint. Not the original paint, but it's been there quite a while. Now we have modern sconces with a Danish Empire mirror, and I think they work great together.
Let's look closer at those. It's great for us and our audience to see how you can mix modern sconces. Where are these from?
These are from Denmark, or actually I take that back, they're from Sweden. They're from Orifors, probably in the late 1950s, early 1960s.
I think when a lot of people are decorating, they think they have to go with all modern or all antique, and it's hard to just try it.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're thinking of trying it, what is one of your tips?
Oh, I just try it. I mean, most dealers, or a lot of dealers, will, if you're in the same town, obviously, will let you take something home, maybe overnight or something on approval. Try it, bring it back if it doesn't work. I mean, we do that a lot because most of our business goes through decorating trade as well. But, so we're kind of used to doing that. But it's very handy to be able to just try a few things at home one time. And the more often you do it, the more confidence you have. And, I mean, as you can see, we mix African, Danish, Swedish, Italian, English. I kind of like things like this. Is the whole theme of this color, our corner, is the color. In the painting, there's a Danish painting of a lady reading, and then a little tobacco cabinet, then you have the big armoire.
You have the notes of red bouncing off.
Yes,
of each
so
piece.
I have the red theme. And the pieces really stylistically have nothing to do with each other. It's really about color. And I think you can do that very easily in a house. And just put things that talk to you together if they have color. Stained glass windows, I started in high school repairing stained glass windows. I taught myself. So they are kind of my first love. And I treat them as art. I love how they change color and they change moods depending on the sunlight. Right now we don't have direct sunlight, so it's actually easier to see the color. When they have direct sunlight, they become very vivid.
So back in here, again, this is very typical. Eron Johnson is larger than life, sculptures, columns, big things. That column right there. So as far as architectural antiques, what draws you to these large, wonderful pieces that not everyone can handle?
Well, I like scale, and I think that the one thing that I go forward in looking at a lot of contemporary and modern interiors when they're just modern is that everything is waist high. And that, to me, just gets old pretty quickly. So I love things that are vertical. I love things that'll touch the ceiling. You don't have to have more than one in a house, but I do think you need something to raise your eye up off the floor.
Yeah.
And so I love having
perfect.
tall things, or I love having things hang from the ceiling and hang down low. So I do mix a lot of that throughout. And I think don't be afraid to put something that seems big in the room, and then use other proportionate pieces. Then you can use smaller pieces to keep that looking big but not out of proportion.
So if you were looking at something like this and you think, oh man, I love it, but I don't know if I can get around the fact that it's an antique. What is your advice for that?
Well, And I suggest this to the interior designers that we speak to at showrooms and things, is forget the fact that it's historic, that it has history. Just forget it. Just look at it on its own merit. Is it interesting? Does it have texture, color, proportion?
Do you love it?
Will it fit? Will it perform a function? Is it a piece of sculpture, even though it's a cabinet or a painting or a chair?
That's a really good piece of advice, because when you first start getting into this, it's very daunting. You don't even know where to start. But where you start is, do I love it?
And the very best thing is to start with something. Start with something that you walk into a shop, a museum, wherever, and you go, I love this thing. This I could live with. And then you find something similar that is in your price range, or maybe you have to stretch a little bit, and you start off with one good thing. And it can create the mood for the whole house or the room.
It doesn't happen overnight.
No. But you have to start somewhere.
Yeah.
So I encourage people to do that. Just
So-
find something.
Is this what we call upcycled?
No, this is a weathered teak bed from the northern part of India. And it makes a wonderful coffee table for a big space. But it is original. This is how it started life.
Wow.
It probably was painted and wouldn't have been weathered looking, but at some point it was used outdoors for quite a long time. But I just see, and again, I love it because it's weathered, and I love it in the same room with something very shiny.
Yes.
We just had somebody leave a comment say, yes, you can mix antique and vintage, and that is so true.
And modern and vintage.
Modern and vintage. Because there's not one vignette in your store that doesn't have some kind of modern, vintage, antique vibe going.
I like, and it can be even in a modern room using one antique mirror or one antique painting. Or in an antique room, there's a modern painting over here. And I think it looks great as a counterpoint to this gold-leafed crazy shelf, having a scene in a cork frame from the 50s. And a glass table. The base is made from the base of an old fountain, and the bowl collapsed, but the base was so nice that we trimmed it down to make it 30 inches tall, and it would make a wonderful, amazing table.
Wow.
And over here we have a balcony. This was an Italian balcony, and later on a top was cut for it, and some gold leaf, kind of rubbed back, although that may have partially been original on that. That's one of the better ones that we've ever had. But that's one of the things that you can do to create things out of other things. This table is a modern, live-edge, single slab of walnut table done in the 90s. And I have it with Corbusier chairs that came from Chandigarh, India, designed about 1950.
I love the organic edge on this.
Yes, and it's just one piece of American walnut.
Amazing.
It's one of the biggest pieces I've ever seen.
I absolutely love room dividers. What are a couple ways that you could use them, not as a room divider, but just as a functional piece of art in your house?
Well, I find many houses, again, you need something colorful, and maybe you don't really have a wall for a painting. So by having it a portable painting, it's really fun to be able to just move it around in the space. Sometimes I cover up doors and windows. In many houses that I've had over the years, I've actually covered windows with art because I'd rather have the art than look at the next door neighbor's house. So I find things like that. And I've used these as headboards, folding screens, basically. And I just mount them up on the wall as art.
Yeah.
And I find it's kind of fun. Actually, takes a little bit of doing, but you can mount them in such a way that you can tell they're a screen. And you can have a little frame made and it'll zigzag it.
Very
and
nice.
then you get three-dimensional art as well.
Again, if you're just tuning in, we are doing a wonderful live walkthrough of Eron Johnson Antiques, who Eron Johnson is on Ruby Lane, and he is on Ruby Lux as well. And what a treat standing here in this amazing, amazing warehouse antique store in the heart of Denver, Colorado.
Got these miniature chandeliers.
Miniature chandeliers. These are about
They're 8
as
foot
wide,
by 6 foot,
8
basically.
foot by 6 foot. Absolutely amazing.
And they are, this one we haven't cleaned in a while, this one we have, and so it sparkles much better.
No
They're,
swinging.
Yes, yeah, they're a Baccarat crystal, made in probably the 1950s. They came out of a building here in Denver, so they were shipped over from Europe in the 50s and were always in a bank here in Denver. They're quite grand. There were 4 originally, 2 of which now are in a log cabin in the mountains.
Incredible.
A log cabin.
Yes, it's a very big log cabin, but it is a log cabin.
So here we're kind of transitioning. I see we have more industrial modern pops of decorative
Yes.
collectibles.
Yeah, so here we've mixed, this is a Danish cabinet from the 30s. It's actually Art Deco, kind of heading, you can see it's heading towards the modernist style. Up above it, Frank Lloyd Wright's draftsman designed these in about 1960. They're cast aluminum. And Frank Lloyd Wright used leaded glass windows throughout his buildings. This particular architect designed these as a grill and used them throughout the building and the landscape in the same way that Frank Lloyd Wright had used leaded glass. So they're kind of technologically as modern as you could get at the time, about 1960, being cast aluminum, but still looking a little bit like the early Frank Lloyd Wright things. And we
Beautiful.
have Indian columns and Swedish Orifors lights.
And these are the chairs that are on the front of the Ruby Lux catalog.
Yes.
That's
And I paired them up with an Art Deco table, so, because I think that would be
Yeah, they
great
go well
fun to
together.
sit around and, So over here, we have some modern things kind of more clumped together in here, and we are always interested in mixing things. This is a wonderful modern, I mean, it just screams Hollywood. It's an old dressing table. The family bought it in 1944 in Los Angeles. It came to Denver. It's lived here ever since. So here we have some vintage leather chairs, an Italian piece of the same fountain as the other piece, French fireplace, African statue, Indian lamp from 1890. Again, I love it all, so it all gets kind of mixed together here.
The mechanical wood piece is very interesting.
Yes, that was made, it's hard to tell actually how long ago it was made. I'm guessing in the 50s, early 60s. It is made out of foundry mold parts. So here is something you can find even eBay, you can find it in Ruby Lane, different dealers. You can find parts and pieces and assemble them as sculpture. And then what they did to kind of make it all cohesive, you could either paint it, in this case they sandblasted it and created a giant piece of sculpture.
It's beautiful.
And we have a very grand, wonderful, large table. Oh, it's not here. It was here.
No, it actually went to a new home.
No, the fireplace. Fireplaces, I feel like, are coming back.
Well, doors and fireplaces, I think, are the best statement pieces in architecture. A door gives you a sense of entrance from one area to another, and a fireplace is kind of tells you where you want to sit and face, and if you're going to be in that room, you tend to congregate around the fireplace somehow. And so that is, I think there's nothing better than a grand fireplace.
This is a grand fireplace.
Yes, it is. It came from a Carnegie house in the East somewhere. It's dated 1913 with a man's initials. You can see he signed it probably the moment before they put it up on the wall.
Absolutely stunning. And this chair, I can't help but be very drawn to this chair and the piece on top.
Well, this is kind of a great chair. It's Frederick IV's. He was the king of Denmark and Norway in the 17th century. It actually is an early lounge chair. These iron bars come up, the back slides back. You could actually take it down to take a nap, put a footstool there. So it's kind of the early strato lounger of the 17th century. The reason we know that it has royal history is on the back left leg, down at the bottom, it's burned in with the crown and his monogram for the castle that it came from.
It's truly from a castle.
Yes.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yep. So this is 17th century. These would love to be 17th century, but they're actually English from the 19th century. You see tons of this kind of thing today. It's terribly out of fashion, which makes it a great bargain. But I love it because it's so over the top.
Mm-hmm.
I always say it's so bad that it's good.
So if you had, say, $1,000 to invest into something, where would you start?
Oh. In decorating a room or
In
starting
decorating
a
a room.
collection?
Just in decorating your home. If you were going to
Decorating a home.
invest, what would you want to put your money into? Would it be, you couldn't quite buy a chandelier for $1,000?
If you would start in a living
but-
area, maybe.
Yeah.
I would start in the room. There are two ways to look at it. The room that you spend the most time in probably is your bedroom, and that is personal space. But the room that you also spend a lot of time is public space in a living room or family room kind of thing. So I would start off with a statement piece. Start off with the best thing you can get that really talks to you, that is kind of the most important thing that you would like to have people notice in the room. Lighting, I find, is very, very helpful, and it's very interesting as well. It's functional, and you get beauty, and it sets the mood for the room. And I think many times the light fixture is the last thing people think of. I think it would be really smart to start with the lighting, or start with a piece of art, or start with the center table, something where you walk in the room and you go, oh, that, I understand that. That's like great, that's a great thing, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I think that's in any room, even if you already own all of the things in the house, there are times to just rearrange it and put things that have always been in one room in some other room just because.
That's a great point.
And it really, you'll find you own a lot of things that change when they go from room to room.
It gives you a different viewpoint of your home as well.
Totally gives you a different viewpoint. I rotate all of my art in my house,
Great.
but I have kind of seasonal things that I enjoy, or themes for color or whatever, and I just change them with the mood. I put some in cardboard sleeves and just put them away, and then 6 months or a year later, it's like, oh, discovering a new friend.
Exactly.
But you can do that and kind of clean the room out, take everything out of it, and then start over in your house with what you have, and just put the things that you really want in there, and then decide what else you want to go find with your $1,000. Is use maybe a couple of things that you already own and say, it really needs a whatever, and then that's where to start.
Great. And it's a great school of thought when people think that they don't need another chair or
Yes.
another piece of art, to really think about putting those items away and doing a seasonal exchange.
Yes.
And that way you don't ever have to stop collecting. Right?
Yeah, and or I can't remember, it was a dealer when I was a kid, just starting, and I was the young guy walking in, and these dealers would let me come in and pick things up. It was really astounding to have people say, oh yeah, that's $1,000 here. And many dealers will let you do that. Well, what you find is that you can upgrade. and you can still have the same, maybe you want to have a vase in the center of the table, and you've had this one forever, and maybe it's time for it to go away, and that becomes what you go look for. But there is something wonderful about upgrading when you have a pretty good example and you go out and you see this amazing example of something you already have. Basically, you just bring the new one home and the old one goes to a friend or a shop, but do some trading and swapping like that.
That's a good idea.
So if you'd like to ask Eron Johnson a question, or if you see anything in this video that interests you and you'd like to inquire further about it, you can reach him through his Ruby Lane shop or on AronJohnsonAntiques.com. And what a treat this is. This was so exciting. This store, we haven't even gotten into the back.
There are 20,000 square feet more than this. It's a lot of warehouse with a lot of doors, columns, big fireplaces. I have an entire paneled room that maybe we can walk through later.
Let's walk through now.
All right,
We'll
let's
just
just
go
do it.
quick. Yeah. So if you're just tuning in, we're live in Denver at Eron Johnson Antiques. Eron Johnson's on Ruby Lane. He is also on Ruby Lux. And so you can find him that way. But look, it feels like we're walking into the national treasure right here. It's like absolutely unbelievable. So we're so happy we can bring you guys in here and get you really up close and see what's going on. So tell us about this entire room that you have here.
Well, this was formerly in the Denver Art Museum, and we have a lot of furniture in front of the paneling, so you can't really see it. I hope you can see enough light in here. It's kind of dark. But it is 17th century English oak. It is hand-carved. It is inlaid with stars, which are amazing, has carved lion heads, columns. And this was the room in the art museum that when I was a kid, I would go and sit in this room and just be surrounded by history. And so this was one of the most important things in my learning, was going to the museums and just absorbing things. Well, when the Denver Museum changed over, and you only have so much space if you're a museum, and you have to kind of keep up with the times. The paneled room had got put into storage, and then it was deaccessioned so that it could be sold to someone else. So I was lucky enough to get to handle this, and it's kind of a bittersweet thing for me, because this particular room is one of the biggest reasons I'm doing what I'm doing. Was going on some grade school trip to the museum and walking in. Oh, they had a suit of armor and a horse with a suit of armor outside this room. I remember that.
What would you like to see happen to this room?
Oh, I think it would be wonderful. It's the kind of thing you kind of buy the room and then build the building to fit the room.
Yeah.
It's like many old pieces, like the largest pieces come into the smallest parts. The bigger the armoire, the more pieces it comes into, the easier it is to move. So a big room like this, actually each panel comes apart at the join where the pillars are. So this comes down into a big flat stack of paneling.
Wow.
And it's relatively easy to reuse things like this.
So if you'd like to visit Eron Johnson, oh, yeah.
I don't know if you can see it. There's a picture of what it looked like in the room. But you could actually go and actually be in there. It was great.
So if you'd like to visit Eron Johnson Antiques, he is located at 389 South Lipan Street in Denver, Colorado. And you can find a mixture of modern, vintage,
And
antique,
lots of doors.
doors, architecture. There's really nothing I can think of that you don't have or could make.
We can really have a lot of fun if we have people who are interested in being creative. It's very hard in some objects today, certain styles and tables especially, long, narrow, low tables, kind of don't exist much in the antique except in Chinese furniture. But you can use components and build things. So we have a lot we have one more level down in the basement. We have a lot of parts and pieces, and you can come and pick things out and build. But I have lots of doors of all vintage. It's a little hard to see in here because we just got a big shipment in. But
Is this what we consider vintage industrial?
yeah, these are vintage industrial bookshelves,
Very cool.
cast iron and wrought iron. Here's a 1950s door designed by Edgar Britton, a German 18th century chest, a Corbusier desk, which shouldn't really be shown like this. It's too important, but here it is. And lots of doors, windows from all around the world.
And your new industrial lighting.
And we have lots of industrial lighting that has just arrived. And it just kind of depends on what we find as to what, what we find is what we have.
Yeah.
It's whenever in the antique business, if you need tables, that's when you find chairs.
Yeah.
So you have to kind of just go with the flow on some of this. As you can tell, I love columns. These are all solid satinwood, solid rosewood, solid teak. And yes, they do hold up buildings. They did for 200 years. They still do. Some of them are 12 feet tall, 10 feet.
So if you like this video, please share it, comment, everything. You can visit Eron Johnson on Ruby Lane. You can visit Eron Johnson on Ruby Lux. You can also visit Eron Johnson at Eron Johnson. So, Eron Johnson, thank you very much.
Certainly.
We sure enjoyed this wonderful, wonderful backstage pass into your fantastic gallery showroom in Denver, Colorado.
Well, thanks very much. It's my pleasure. I hope to see some of you in person, and if not, write or call, and love to talk antiques anytime.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.